The scout ship of the Krell Empire appeared suddenly at the edge of the Alpha Centauri system. Its crystalline hull reflected starlight in patterns never before recorded by human instruments. The ship moved with precision that suggested advanced technology far beyond Earth's capabilities. Captain Su Kim stood on the bridge of the UES Discovery, his posture rigid as he observed the alien vessel on the main view screen. He had trained for this moment for years, but the reality of first contact made his heart race. The 5 crew members on the bridge held their breath, waiting for his command. "Maintain distance," Captain Kim ordered. "Open all communication channels." Lieutenant Du nodded and activated the array. "Channels open, sir." Captain Kim cleared his throat. "Greetings from Earth and the United Nations Space Command. We come in peace and friendship." For several tense moments, there was only silence. The alien vessel remained motionless, its strange hull pulsing with internal lights. Then, a response came through the ship's speakers in perfect English. "You address the vanguard of Her Imperial Majesty Empress Terra. State your capabilities and territorial claims." The voice was smooth and almost musical, but had an unmistakable tone of authority. Captain Kim exchanged glances with his first officer. "We claim only the Sol system as our home territory," he replied carefully. "We are explorers seeking peaceful contact with other civilizations." The alien ship's response was immediate. "Your exploration has been noted. The Empress will determine if your species warrants further attention. Stand by for coordinates for diplomatic exchange." When the communication ended, the bridge erupted in activity. Captain Kim immediately sent an encrypted message to Earth. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session. Within days, they selected a diplomatic team led by Ambassador G. Park, a veteran negotiator known for her calm demeanor and quick thinking. The meeting location was a small, uninhabited moon orbiting a gas giant 3 light-years from both Earth and the nearest Krell outpost. The UES Harmony, Earth's most advanced diplomatic vessel, arrived first. Ambassador Park spent the journey reviewing the limited data they had on the Krell Empire, mostly speculation based on the brief encounter at Alpha Centauri. "We know almost nothing about their culture, their social structures, or their values," Park told her team during the final briefing. "Our primary goal is peaceful contact. Our secondary goal is learning as much as we can." When the Krell vessel arrived, it dwarfed the human ship. The massive vessel cast a shadow over the meeting site, a temporary structure erected on the moon's surface. Ambassador Park led 6 diplomats, each specialized in different aspects of first contact protocols. The airlock opened to reveal the Krell delegation. The aliens were tall, with iridescent skin that shifted colors in the light. Their eyes were large, with vertical pupils that widened as they entered the room. Ambassador Park noted how they moved with fluid grace despite the low gravity. At the center of the group stood Empress Terra herself. She wore flowing robes that seemed to be made of living material, shifting and flowing around her slender form. A crown of crystalline material similar to her ship's hull adorned her head. The human delegation had not expected the Empress to attend in person, and Park quickly adjusted her approach. "Your Imperial Majesty," Ambassador Park bowed slightly. "We are deeply honored by your presence. Earth welcomes this historic opportunity for dialogue between our peoples." The Empress studied Park with unblinking eyes. "I wish to see these humans myself," she said. Her voice had the same musical quality as the transmission, but with more complexity. "Few species warrant my personal attention." Ambassador Park smiled and extended her hand, a human gesture of friendship and respect. "We hope this meeting marks the beginning of peaceful relations between our civilizations." The room temperature seemed to drop instantly. The Empress's skin flashed dark colors, and her pupils contracted to thin lines. The Krell guards reached for devices at their sides. "You dare threaten the sovereign ruler of 87 star systems with the death gesture." Empress Terra's voice was cold fury. The other Krell backed away from the humans, their skin displaying patterns of alarm. Ambassador Park quickly withdrew her hand. Imperial Majesty, there has been a misunderstanding. This gesture is a sign of friendship among humans. We intended no offense. Lies, the Empress hissed. Our studies of primitive species are extensive. The extended limb is a universal challenge of dominance. You have revealed your true intentions. One of the human linguists tried to explain, but the Empress raised her hand for silence. For this insult, your species will serve or perish. You have 7 rotations to prepare your world for imperial inspection. Resistance will not be tolerated. The meeting ended abruptly. The human delegation was escorted back to their shuttle under armed guard. As they hurried inside the craft, Ambassador Park's face was pale but determined. Once they were safely away from the moon, she opened a secure channel to Admiral Song of the Earth Defense Council. Her message was brief. Critical diplomatic failure. Misinterpretation of human gesture as threat. Empress demands Earth's surrender within 7 days. Admiral Song's response was equally brief. Understood. Return immediately. As the ship turned toward Earth, Admiral Song sat in the secure command center beneath the Pacific Ocean. He entered his authorization code and sent a 3-word encrypted message to key points throughout the solar system. Initiate Protocol Sentinel. Throughout the solar system, hidden installations received the signal. In the rings of Saturn, beneath the surface of Europa, deep within the asteroid belt, and in classified Earth orbit positions, systems began to activate. Humanity's greatest secret was about to be revealed. On the voyage home, Ambassador Park watched the stars through a viewport, wondering if these would be Earth's final days of freedom. She didn't know about Protocol Sentinel. Few did. But soon, both humanity and the Krell Empire would witness the results of humanity's 50 years of silent preparation. 50 years earlier, Dr. Min stood in the silent control room of the quantum array station on Luna, staring at the data patterns on his screen. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his glasses. The signal was faint but unmistakable, a regular pattern of radio pulses from the direction of the Ta City system. It wasn't natural. It couldn't be. Director Kang needs to see this immediately, he told his assistant. 3 days later, in a secure conference room beneath Geneva, 12 world leaders gathered around a table. The atmosphere was tense as Director Kang presented the findings. The signals are artificial, she explained, pointing to the projection. We've detected similar patterns from 3 different star systems. The conclusion is inescapable. Humanity is not alone in the galaxy. The President of the United Nations Security Council leaned forward. And you believe these signals pose a threat? We don't know, Director Kang replied honestly. But throughout Earth's history, when technologically advanced civilizations have encountered less developed ones, the outcomes have rarely favored the latter. Admiral Ho Lee, then a young officer with a reputation for strategic brilliance, stood up. He was not scheduled to speak, but what he said next would change humanity's future. We must assume the worst while hoping for the best, he said. Earth needs defenses that would make any potential aggressor think twice. 6 months later, the United Nations approved funding for 5 interplanetary carriers, a modest defense force designed to protect Earth and its colonies in the solar system. The news made headlines around the world. What the public didn't know was that another meeting had taken place in absolute secrecy. In a hidden facility carved into Mount Pektu, representatives from every major nation signed the Aegis Accord. Earth would build not 5 carriers, but 200 supercarriers, a fleet that could stand against any alien force. The success of Project Aegis depends on absolute secrecy, Admiral Lee told the assembled leaders. If extraterrestrial civilizations discover our true capabilities, they might strike before we are ready. Construction began in remote locations throughout the solar system. Inside the hollowed-out moon of Callisto, engineers worked in massive underground hangars. Hidden within Saturn's rings, automated factories assembled hull sections under the cover of ice and dust. Deep within the asteroid belt, mining operations served as cover for shipyards. 10 years into the project, Admiral Lee visited the Callisto facility. He stood on an observation platform overlooking the construction of the SCS Determination. The supercarrier was massive, nearly 2 kilometers long, its frame still exposed as workers swarmed over it like ants. Chief Engineer Jun approached him with a datapad. "We've solved the power distribution problems, Admiral. The gravitational weapons can now fire at full capacity without overloading the main systems." Admiral Lee nodded. "What about the quantum shields? Tests show they can absorb 300% more energy than our original designs." Jun replied, pride evident in her voice. "If these alien signals come from hostile forces, they'll find us ready." Security measures were extreme. Workers lived on site for years at a time. All communications were heavily encrypted. Supply ships followed random routes to avoid establishing patterns. Families were told their loved ones worked on deep space mining operations or research stations. Commander Wu led the intelligence division tasked with maintaining the secret. His team created elaborate cover stories, false data trails, and dummy projects to explain the resources being directed to Project Aegis. If any hint of our true activities reaches the public, everything we've worked for could be compromised. He reminded his agents during their monthly briefing. The project faced numerous challenges over the decades. A solar flare nearly exposed the Saturn Ring facility. A supply ship malfunction almost resulted in a catastrophic explosion at the Mars staging area. Political tensions on Earth threatened to unravel the international cooperation that made Aegis possible. Through it all, Admiral Lee maintained his focus with quiet determination. Now in his 60s, he had dedicated his life to protecting Earth from a threat that might never materialize. At the 25-year mark, half the planned fleet was complete. The United Defense Council gathered to witness the first full test of the supercarrier systems. From a secure observation platform, they watched as the SCS Defiance moved silently out of its hidden dock in the asteroid belt. The massive vessel activated its gravity drive, accelerating to speeds that conventional engines could never achieve. Its weapons systems targeted and destroyed a series of test drones with precision that left the observers in stunned silence. "One down, 100 more to go," Admiral Lee said quietly. After 40 years, all 200 supercarriers were operational. They remained hidden, dispersed throughout the solar system, each crewed by the best officers Earth had to offer. Regular training exercises were conducted in the outer solar system, far from prying eyes. In a rare moment of reflection, Admiral Lee stood alone in his office on Titan Base. On his wall hung a simple frame containing the original printout of the alien signals that had started everything. He had grown old in service to Project Aegis, his hair now white, his face lined with the weight of responsibility. His second-in-command, Captain Sun, entered with the yearly status report. "All ships remain at operational readiness, Admiral. Crew morale is high despite the isolation." Admiral Lee nodded. "Sometimes I wonder if we've wasted 50 years and unimaginable resources preparing for a threat that will never come." "With respect, sir," Sun replied. "I believe history will remember you as either the man who wasted resources on an unnecessary fleet or the man who saved humanity. I know which I'd prefer." A small smile crossed the Admiral's face. "Let us hope these ships never see battle," he said, words he had repeated many times over the decades. "But if that day comes, we must be ready." Neither man could know that within 10 years, humanity would make first contact with the Krell Empire, or that soon after, the Earth's great secret would finally be revealed. Commander Tahan stood on the command deck of the Krell warship Eternal Glory, reviewing the data on the primitive species that had offended his Empress. The holographic display showed Earth's modest fleet, 5 carriers of unremarkable design and outdated weapon systems. He allowed himself a small smile as he prepared his report. The Imperial throne room was vast, its crystalline walls reflecting light in hypnotic patterns. Commander Han knelt before Empress Terra, his head bowed in perfect submission. "Rise, Commander, and tell me of these humans," the Empress said, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. Commander Han stood and activated his data projector. Images of Earth and its defense systems appeared in the air between them. The humans possess exactly 5 warships of note, he reported confidently. Their technology is crude, their defenses minimal. We estimate conquest would require less than 1 standard battle group. The Empress studied the projections with narrowed eyes. Her skin shifted to a deep purple, a sign of satisfaction among the Krell. Then send 2 battle groups, Commander, she said, a cold smile playing across her lips. I will accept nothing less than unconditional surrender. Make an example of these humans who dared to insult me. Commander Han bowed deeply. It shall be done, Your Majesty. 3 days later, 50 Imperial warships assembled at the edge of Krell space. Each ship was a marvel of engineering, their hulls made of living crystal that could repair damage and adapt to enemy weapons. Commander Han addressed the fleet captains from the bridge of his flagship. Our mission is simple, he told them. We will enter the human system, demand their surrender, and accept nothing less than total submission to the Empress. Resistance is unlikely, but if it occurs, we will crush it swiftly. The captains acknowledged their orders with formal gestures of obedience. None questioned the mission. The Krell Empire had conquered 87 star systems with similar tactics. Humans would be the 88th species to bow before the Empress. The fleet entered hyperspace, the fabric of reality bending around their ships as they accelerated to impossible speeds. Within hours, they reached the edge of the Sol system. Exit hyperspace, Commander Han ordered. Maintain battle formation Alpha. The 50 warships emerged in perfect arrangement, a display of precision meant to intimidate. They paused at the outer edge of the system, giving the humans time to detect them and understand their hopeless situation. On the bridge of the eternal glory, Commander Han felt a moment of unexpected pity for the primitive species about to lose its freedom. These moments before conquest always gave him a strange feeling, watching a civilization's last moments of independence, knowing their history was about to change forever. Open a system-wide broadcast, he ordered. His communications officer complied. Channel open, Commander. Han straightened his posture and spoke in a clear, commanding voice. People of Earth, your insult to Her Imperial Majesty cannot be forgiven. Surrender your planet and submit to Imperial rule or face annihilation. You have 1 standard hour to respond. The message would be reaching Earth now, likely causing panic and despair. Han imagined their pitiful leaders scrambling to decide whether to fight with their inadequate forces or surrender. It was always the same. Sir, his sensor officer called out, confusion in her voice. I'm detecting unusual energy readings from multiple locations in the system. Commander Han frowned. Specify. Activity in Saturn's rings, more near the Jovian moons, the asteroid belt, and in Earth orbit. The readings are massive. Sir. Before Han could respond, his tactical officer reported with growing alarm. Sir, objects are decloaking throughout the system. The main view screen showed it happening in real time. Like ghosts materializing from empty space, ships began to appear. Not small vessels, but enormous warships, each one larger than the eternal glory itself. They appeared from Saturn's rings, from behind the moons of Jupiter, from within the asteroid belt, and from Earth orbit. Count, Han demanded, his voice tight. 50, 100, 150. The tactical officer's voice faltered. 200 vessels, Commander. Each appears to be a supercarrier-class warship. The bridge fell silent. 200 supercarriers. The humans had not 5 ships, but 200, each more advanced than his own flagship. Impossible, Han whispered. Our intelligence. Commander, they're hailing us, the communications officer reported. Han nodded numbly, and the view screen changed to show a human male with white hair and a weathered face. His uniform was simple but elegant, bearing symbols of high rank. This is Admiral Ho Lee of the Earth Defense Fleet, the human said, his voice calm and measured. Imperial Commander, We intended no insult to your Empress. But make no mistake, Earth stands ready to defend itself. The choice between peace and war is yours. Choose wisely." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Han's second in command leaned close. "Commander, they outgun us by a factor of 10. Our shields cannot withstand their combined firepower." Commander Han felt cold dread in his stomach. The Empress had sent them to what she believed would be a simple conquest. Instead, she had sent them to potential annihilation. No Krell battle group had ever retreated without engaging the enemy. It was considered the highest dishonor. Yet Han was responsible for 50 ships and their crews. To fight now would be suicide. "Scan their weapons systems," he ordered. His tactical officer worked quickly. "Sir, they appear to have gravitational weapons we've never encountered before. Their shields are unusual. They seem to operate on quantum principles." Han made his decision. "Send to all ships. Maintain formation and be prepared for immediate hyperspace jump." Then he opened a channel to Earth. "Admiral Lee, I acknowledge your message. I will convey your position to Her Imperial Majesty. We are withdrawing from your system." With imperial dignity masking his shock, he gave the order. "All ships, tactical withdrawal. Return to Imperial space." As the Krell fleet turned and vanished into hyperspace, Han knew 3 things with certainty. He would face the Empress's wrath for retreating. The humans had somehow concealed their true capabilities for years, and the galaxy's balance of power had just fundamentally changed. In his private quarters, preparing the report that might end his career, Commander Han wondered how the humans had kept such a massive fleet secret, and what other surprises they might have waiting. News of the human fleet spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. On worlds across Krell space, citizens gathered around information terminals, watching grainy footage of 200 massive warships appearing from nowhere. The Krell Empire had ruled for centuries through fear and superior firepower. Now, a species no one had taken seriously possessed a fleet that rivaled the Imperial Armada. In her first week as Earth's ambassador to galactic affairs, Seoju had not expected to be so busy. Her office on the neutral trading station Nexus 6 was meant to be a symbolic outpost, a place for humanity to learn about the wider galaxy. Instead, it had become the center of a diplomatic storm. Ambassador Ju sat at her desk, reviewing the requests for meetings that had flooded in since the revelation of Earth's fleet. 27 species wanted formal introductions. 15 had sent gifts. 12 had proposed immediate alliances. Her assistant entered with a concerned look. "Ambassador, there's a Lorani representative insisting on seeing you. She doesn't have an appointment." Ju nodded. "Send her in." The Lorani were tall, willowy beings with pale blue skin and 4 arms. This one wore elaborate robes that suggested high status. She glanced nervously at the door as it closed behind her. "Thank you for seeing me, Ambassador," she said in a hushed voice. "I am Nera, Deputy Minister of External Affairs for the Lorani Confederation." "Welcome, Deputy Minister," Ju replied. "How can Earth help the Lorani today?" Nera moved closer, lowering her voice further. "The Lorani Confederation would welcome alliance with Earth. We have suffered under Krell dominance for generations. Your fleet, it gives us hope." Ju maintained a neutral expression. "I'm not authorized to form military alliances, Deputy Minister, but I'm happy to discuss cultural exchange." "You don't understand," Nera said urgently. "The Krell Empire is not what it appears. Their power relies on the perception of invincibility. Now that your fleet has challenged that perception, cracks are appearing. We are not the only ones who see opportunity in this moment." Similar conversations played out across the galaxy. Species that had been subjugated by the Krell for centuries suddenly saw a chance for greater independence. Trade negotiations that had stalled for decades reopened. Ancient rivalries and alliances shifted as the balance of power tilted. On the Krell imperial throne world of Kellinar Prime, Empress Terra paced the Imperial Strategy Chamber. The crystalline walls reflected her agitation, changing color with her mood, currently a dangerous red. How did we not know? She demanded, her voice echoing off the high ceiling. How could primitives hide such a fleet? 200 supercarriers, built in secret. 6 advisors stood at attention, none daring to speak first. Commander Han, who had delivered the news of the human fleet, stood at the back, his posture rigid with the expectation of punishment. Our intelligence network spans 87 systems, the Empress continued. We have spies on every known world. Yet somehow, these humans concealed their true capabilities from us for years. Minister Yoon, her most trusted counselor, finally spoke. His voice was calm despite the Empress's rage. Perhaps, Your Majesty, they are not the primitives we believe them to be. The Empress stopped pacing and fixed him with a cold stare. Explain. We assumed their technological development matched our observation of their 5 public carriers, Minister Yoon said. This was a mistake. They wanted us to underestimate them. This suggests a level of strategic thinking we have not encountered before. The Empress considered his words. You admire them, she accused. Minister Yoon bowed slightly. I recognize a worthy opponent, Your Majesty. The humans have demonstrated patience, discipline, and foresight. These are qualities the Empire once valued. The Empress's skin darkened with anger, but before she could respond, a junior aide rushed into the chamber, a serious breach of protocol. Forgive the interruption, Imperial Majesty, the aide said, trembling. Prince Jin's ship has departed without authorization. He left a message saying he goes to seek new perspectives. The Empress's rage was cold and terrible. Find him. Now. Prince Jin had indeed fled, but not without purpose. His small, fast vessel carried him beyond Imperial sensors, where he transmitted a message on a frequency he knew the humans would be monitoring. Admiral Lee received the transmission personally in his secure command center on Luna. The holographic image of a young Krell male appeared before him, clearly royal by his markings, but lacking the imperial crest of the Empress. Admiral Lee, I am Prince Jin, nephew to Empress Terra. I wish to speak with you on matters of mutual interest. The Empire has grown corrupt under my aunt's rule. Many within the royal court would welcome reform. Your appearance may be the catalyst we need. Admiral Lee studied the young prince's image. This could be a trap, he told his security chief. Or it could be legitimate internal division we can exploit, the chief replied. After careful consideration, Lee agreed to a meeting at a neutral location with heavy security. 3 days later, in an abandoned mining station orbiting a dead star, Admiral Lee met Prince Jin face to face. The young Krell prince was accompanied by only 2 guards, a significant show of trust. My aunt will not accept the new reality, Prince Jin said after formal greetings. She is preparing the full Imperial fleet for war. But many of us believe this would be disastrous for the Empire. Why tell us this? Admiral Lee asked. Because I believe in what the Empire was meant to be, a force for stability and progress, Prince Jin replied. Under my aunt, it has become a tool of oppression. I am not alone in this view. At least 20 provincial governors and 5 fleet admirals would support reform. As Earth established diplomatic relations with other species, humanity learned they had stumbled into a complex web of ancient alliances, hidden resentments, and political opportunities. The galaxy was not simply divided between the Krell Empire and everyone else. There were dozens of political factions, hundreds of historical grievances, and countless opportunities for both conflict and cooperation. Back on Earth, the United Defense Council received Ambassador Ju's report with growing concern. We built our fleet for defense, said the UDC chairperson. Now we find ourselves at the center of a potential galactic civil war. Admiral Lee, attending via secure hologram, nodded gravely. We revealed our strength to prevent conquest. Now we must be careful not to become conquerors ourselves, or to be used as pawns in conflicts we barely understand. In her office on Nexus 6, Ambassador Ju prepared for another day of meetings. On her desk sat a small model of a human supercarrier. a gift from a grateful species that saw humans as liberators. The irony wasn't lost on her. Earth had built its fleet in fear of alien conquest, only to find itself cast as the galaxy's new hope. The attack came when Earth least expected it. Dawn was breaking over North America when the first alarm sounded. Admiral Hobley was awakened from deep sleep by a priority alert. He rushed to the command center beneath Luna's surface, still pulling on his uniform jacket. "Status report," he demanded as he entered. Colonel Hyun pointed to the main display. 300 Krell warships just appeared at the edge of the systems. "Sir, they bypassed our outer sensor net using some kind of new stealth technology. They're moving fast toward Earth." Admiral Lee's face remained calm, though inside his heart raced. This was the moment Project Aegis had prepared for over 5 decades. "Send the alert to all carriers. Activation code Phoenix." Throughout the solar system, 200 supercarriers powered up their systems. Crews who had trained for years moved with precision to their battle stations. On the bridge of the SCS Determination, Captain Nari checked her systems as the massive ship emerged from its hiding place in Saturn's rings. "All weapons online," her tactical officer reported. "Quantum shields at full capacity." The Imperial fleet moved in perfect formation toward Earth. Their ships were sleek and deadly, the crystalline hulls glowing with power as they prepared for battle. On the lead vessel, Empress Terra watched the approach with cold satisfaction. "The humans will learn the cost of defiance," she told her war council. "Today we crush their fleet and take their world." The Krell had studied the limited footage of the human supercarriers and believed they understood their capabilities. They expected a standard space battle, ships firing at long range, tactical maneuvers, gradually wearing down the enemy. They were wrong. Admiral Lee stood at the center of the lunar command hub, surrounded by holographic displays showing the position of every ship in the system. He had waited 80 years for this moment, hoping it would never come. "All ships, defensive formation Delta," he ordered. "Remember your training. We are fighting for Earth today." The human fleet moved with unexpected speed. Instead of forming a defensive line around Earth as the Krell anticipated, the supercarriers spread out in an elaborate 3-dimensional pattern. "They're scattering," the Krell tactical officer told Empress Terra, a sign of poor coordination or fear. The Empress smiled. "Press the attack. Target their largest vessels first." The Imperial fleet fired their main weapons. Beams of energy streaked across space toward the human carriers. At the last possible moment, the targeted ships vanished, only to reappear elsewhere. "Phase shift technology," gasped a Krell science officer. "That's impossible." The human carriers fired their gravitational weapons. Unlike conventional energy weapons, these created localized distortions in spacetime, crushing Krell shields without touching them. 10 Imperial ships were disabled in the first volley. "Adapt targeting parameters," the Empress ordered, her skin darkening with rage. "Find their weaknesses." But the human ships continued to surprise them. Their quantum shields adapted to Krell weapons, becoming stronger with each hit. Their targeting systems could lock onto multiple ships simultaneously. Their engines allowed maneuvers that seemed to defy physics. Admiral Lee watched the battle unfold with grim determination. "Focus on disabling, not destroying," he reminded his fleet commanders. "We want to end this with minimal loss of life." The tide turned decisively when a specially designed human vessel managed to get close to the Imperial flagship. It released a pulse that temporarily disabled the Krell ship's communications and propulsion systems. The Imperial flagship drifted in space, surrounded by human carriers with weapons locked on its command center. Throughout the system, the battle was ending. Over half the Krell fleet had been disabled without being destroyed. The rest were surrounded with no hope of victory. Admiral Lee opened a channel to the Empress's crippled vessel. The main screen showed her on the bridge, her royal garments torn, her skin pale with fury and fear. "Empress Terra," Admiral Lee said, his voice firm but not triumphant. "Your ship is disabled and your fleet defeated. We could destroy you now, But that is not our way. Instead, I invite you to discuss terms for a lasting peace." There was a long silence as the Empress stared at the human admiral. Around her, her officers waited for her decision. Finally, she spoke. "I will discuss terms," she said, each word clearly painful to her. 2 weeks later, the Grand Assembly Hall on Luno was filled with representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations. Some had been Krell subjects for centuries. Others were allies or neutral parties. All had come to witness a historic moment. Prince Jin stood next to his aunt, who now wore simple robes without imperial insignia. She had fought the terms of the agreement for days, but faced with both external defeat and internal rebellion, led by her nephew, she had finally relented. The Galactic Concordat establishes a council where all species have equal representation, Ambassador Ju announced to the Assembly. No single power will dominate. A joint defensive fleet, with ships contributed by all member species, will enforce peace. One by one, representatives approached to sign the document. When it was the Krell's turn, Empress Terra hesitated. Prince Jin touched her arm gently. "Aunt, it is time for a new era," he said quietly. "Sign, and be remembered as the leader who brought the Empire into a better future." With visible reluctance, she signed. As the ceremony concluded, Admiral Lee stood by a viewport overlooking Earth. The blue planet hung in space, peaceful and beautiful, unaware how close it had come to conquest. Beside him stood Jun, the engineer who had helped build the first supercarrier 50 years earlier. Now an old woman, she had lived to see the fleet she helped create save her world. "We built our fleet hoping never to use it," Admiral Lee said quietly. "Now we use our strength not to conquer, but to build something better." Jun nodded. "History will remember you not as a warrior, but as a peacemaker." Admiral Lee smiled. "I hope so. The hardest part begins now, learning to live alongside different species as equals." From space, the stars seemed brighter somehow, as if promising a new future. Humanity had secured its place in the cosmos not through dominance alone, but through strength tempered with wisdom. In the years that followed, Earth's supercarriers rarely saw battle. Instead, they became symbols of a new balance of power, reminders that peace came not from weakness, but from strength used wisely. The revelation that had once outraged an empress had ultimately created a galaxy where no species need fear another. The end.